He did it.
And we're live!
Hey.
There we go.
He did it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 15 of 40k Frontiers. Smells like team spirit. Get it? Team spirit. Boom.
Nailed it.
Today we have the usual trio, the three musketeers. We've got Mr. Towse. How you doing, buddy?
Dude, I'm tired, but it's all right. We'll chat about 40k. It'll make things all better.
We have the man, the myth, the legend, Benny Way. How you doing, buddy?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Good, thank you. But we've got a special guest as well,
We
Mr.
do.
Jack. It's the first time of someone appearing as a guest on the episode portion. So we've got Jack with us today. He's a member of, I guess, the team I attended, so the VTC, and a great man. Jack, introduce yourself.
Hey, well, you obviously gave me so much of a great introduction. I feel a bit weird shilling myself now. I'm Jack. I'm based up in the same area Ben is, and yeah, as
Only
Sam
newly.
said, yeah,
Only newly.
very recently.
Yeah.
But as Sam said, like I was on his team for VTC. We both attended Krootcon together, and yeah, we've been working on team stuff since ATC last year.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
Oh.
on this episode, it's going to be a bit more of an event recap, not as much in terms of events covering the wide scope of the 40k universe, but a bit more of a specialized experience of Jack and I's experience through Krootcon and VTC, but also covering some Australian events and sort of events around the globe, so touching on them as well. So, but before we get stuck in, so Towse, what have you been up to lately? What's been happening?
Just before that, real quick, I wanted to plug in because you said first time having a guest. This is like we're trying a new-ish thing of Jack's sort of like a guest host a bit more rather than like an interview, someone coming on for an interview. So we're trying that out. It's meant to be subtly different. We imagine it is. So yeah, if you've got feedback, put a comment. Drive the interaction, make the algorithm go. Yeah. But no, what's been going on with me? I have basically been having a bit of a chill time after NZTC. I don't think I've played too much or done too much. I tried. I had a game of Necrons with like a somewhat suboptimal list because I got the king. He's somewhere. And yeah, got wrecked by a friend in their second game of ninth because they're a competent player and they were playing bugs, a reasonable list, but we're just like going through the motions of like, what are my data sheets? What's this? So yeah, had a couple of games last week and then earlier today, which was really great. Catching up with them for the first time in a while. Yeah, played Necrons. The secondaries are dumb. I had a whole lot of fun just doing nonsense jank with one brick of scarabs, like going in and be like, all right, I'm going to charge this unit and pile in and only have one scarab base within an inch and then have like 4 or 5 others around within half inch of that one, which is a half inch. So I can attack you with a bunch of them. Then that one in combat's going to go bomb and you can't punch me back. Ha 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 ha. That was fun. And then later they tried to tag some zoanthropes, have the 1 wound base get hit back. I was really hoping it would die because it was set up so that it was the only thing keeping coherency with like a base in melee. And I was going to try pull it and then pull myself out of combat to go do the action and feel real clever. And Zoe's just, they don't hit in combat. They missed. And I was sad.
Look, mate, I was going to say, like, that's your first mistake, expecting them to do something in combat. They literally only do one phase. That is psychic phase, nothing else.
They do move as well, in all fairness.
They do move, but they don't even move spectacularly fast at all. So they just,
Yeah. So that's my experience. That like mucking around with that one scarab brick was like I was having so much fun with them doing jank. And Necron secondaries are dumb, but I got my shit pushed in by Levy warriors. And I built an Eldar Ruin prototype thing. Those of you listening on a podcast, I am like holding a thing in my webcam for now.
it's like an MDF crown.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Hey, there we go.
But no, it's so that I've basically because every ruin in the 41st millennium is like a ruined imperial building. The orc terrain are not ruined; they're just orc construction standard. So yeah, every ruin is imperial. And I was like, well, we can fix this. So I've designed like some Eldari ones. And so I've got like symbols etched onto the final version, which I'm going to try and make some tables of. I think that's me. I've spoken for like 3 minutes about 2 games and a design.
Wouldn't be Mr. Towse if it wasn't for a tangent, right? Wouldn't be. Benny, what's been happening with you?
I've been busy with a bit of work this week, but I've got some busy times ahead, and it's already kind of started with list submission this Friday for New South Wales TC. So there's a lot of that stuff going on, a lot of approval, a lot of TO, hot on the messenger. You know how it is. And yeah, just gearing. I've got running an RTT this Saturday. Jack's actually coming to that, so that'll be good fun. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to play in that. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We'll just see how it goes. But I put a list in just to make sure there's no shenanigans. But yeah, so so I hope I'm going to play in it. Played a game today against Thousand Suns, was good fun. So nice practice game, just playing around with the list a little bit and stuff like that. So yeah, felt good. It was good. I'm all good.
Hey, you got a shout out for your snowflake list being appreciated by
Oh yeah,
TNG.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm only halfway through the episode because that's the bile one, isn't it? So I was really with Zach on it. So
it's the one about with the big me. Have you got to the big me yet?
No, not yet. No. I love
1 a.m.
I'm really enjoying it because I was going to have a look through it, but I was like, no. I just listened to him speaking about Bile, and I was just like, yeah, this is awesome because I can't wait to play some Chaos Space Marines. Bile, I imagine, will probably be nerfed by then, but
you'll never know. You never know.
But Jack, you just never know, dear.
You never know. Jack, so what's been happening with you in this past month or so? What have you been doing? Been playing a bunch of 40k, obviously. These past 2 weekends, you played Krootcon and BTC, but what have you been up to? Doing much hobby? What's been happening?
So this RTT I'm going to with Ben will mark my 4th Warhammer tournament in 4 weeks. So I ran an RTT before Krootcon, then went to VTC, and now I'm coming back up here to do another RTT. So it's basically been hobby trying to add more jank to my Drukhari. So painting up Eldar Corsairs for one, starting to put them into my list, all sorts of stuff like that. But yeah, most of my hobby has just been actual Warhammer tournaments and the fallout thereout. So it's been good times.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. What more could you want? I mean, just Warhammer all the time, right? I mean,
pretty much.
It does add up, though. It does add up.
Yeah, especially after VTC, it's like, ooh.
It's fine. He's a Drukhari player. Power from pain.
Exactly.
Got this.
Nothing could go
wrong. He said the line.
Oh no, he said it.
Yeah, I guess for myself, so it's been funny. So I've had like 2 weekends back to back of events. That was my first events since May, since the ANZ Team Champs, and then because I've just been TOing between then and having practice games, and now I have a long period of no playing tournaments until January. So it's like had this little stint, and then I'll just be on hiatus for a while. So yeah, just preparing with life stuff and sort of waiting for the data slate to see what's happening, and then play around with some things. I've got a Bella core sitting on the shelf that needs the dust, come off and play around with it, have some fun, and then play around with some Harlequins as well. Just tinker with some things, wait until the data slate, and go from there and prepare for Uprising. So yeah.
So not just play one book then. No, so not just play one. No, just play every book.
No, Ben, he's getting practice on all the different ones. So when the data slate drops, and we've got a new Overlord, he's ready to bandwagon.
I had 14 hours in the car with Sam over the weekend trying to convince him to play Drukhari again. I was like, come on, it'll be fun.
I mean,
no, it's a defection, bro.
It is dead. No, it's not dead. It's dead. I did actually, funny enough, play one game with him, 1,500 points. Drazar was so much fun, but it didn't get punk by a baton, so not so great.
1,500 points, Sam? I didn't know you were in town.
Too good. But before we get started onto, I guess, the main event of the show, I'm going to give a quick plug. So if you guys want to ask us questions or listen to more content from Best in Tabletop, there's www.patreon.com/Best in Tabletop. You can join for $10 a month. Join the best Discord in 40k. Absolutely not biased at all. And alternatively, there's a YouTube Premium area, the members area. Same US $10 a month that get access to behind the scenes bit reps and extra chasing the narrative content. And you can do both for $15 a month if you join on the YouTube Premium. So get the best of both worlds for a discounted price. So cool.
Also, there's a merch store. Google Best in Faction. There's a website URL that I should know but don't. And then there's a store. You can buy stuff. There's the TNG guys with some funny slogans. We've got our koala thing somewhere. It's on a singlet because sun's out, guns out. Yeah, that. Right, plug done. On with the show.
Plug done. You did it. Smashed it. Beautiful.
Yay.
All right. On to the main event. So I guess, do you want to start off with MOAB? So MOAB was this past weekend in New South Wales, and unfortunately none of us were able to attend, but it was a big event, 70 players in New South Wales, and won by, I guess, a local TTS practice partner of mine, Jordan. Congrats, won with T-Sons and Demons. So 70 players, so he won the event. Won with T-Sons with a Chaos Demons attachment. So it had actually Kairos Fate with it, I'm pretty sure, from memory, and just playing around with the stupid Mortal Wounds shenanigans with T-Sons. And then it came Orcs in second with Brett. So he's a local legend in Wollongong, hosting a bunch of events. Hosted Gonghammer. And who came in third? Was it Kirby with Tau? I think. Well, something like that. Yeah. It was a good event, though. And we have some photos coming on screen. So of the final event, actually. So they got Jordan versus, I think it was Brad. And yeah, it's a big event. Good turnout. MOAB's like a sort of staple that happens over the October long weekend in Australia. So, yeah, good event.
It was Admech that came third with the Greek. Yeah.
Ah, yes.
So there you go,
man,
Admech.
like
But that was a mortal wound driven list as well. That was all built around just doing mortal wounds. So
those neon grass tufts go real well with flamers, and that is a beautiful gladius. People listening, go look at the pictures on the YouTubes, and then hit the buttons, drive the algorithm. Yay!
Yeah, some great looking armies.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Because what's the long weekend that you guys have for this October thing? Is it some important Australian thing?
No, it's actually a Queen's birthday long weekend, or I guess was the Queen's birthday long weekend. I think it's now going to be relabeled to the King's birthday, I'm pretty sure. It's always just been an October long weekend, I think, from memory.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah.
Alrighty.
Well, I think it got to 55 people or something in that tournament. 56, I think. Yeah. It was a smaller one, but it was still a good one. So the tables are very similar from Gonghammer earlier this year as well. So the same terrain. So yeah, it was good. So TO play stuff, and it was map driven, so it was nice.
Happy days.
Awesome.
So,
Cool.
on to the main event. So do you want to start off with Krootcon, I guess? And I'll hand over the reins to you, Benny, if you like.
Righto. So for this part of the show, we can do something different. Me and Towse are going to interview Sam on his own show and our guest Jack, because we just talked about Krootcon. And we're going to talk about VTC as well. So even though we haven't done that bit in the event coverage, we're going to give you the rundown from our point of view, and then we'll tell you just the general facts about it later in the event rundown. But so we thought for something different, it would be nice to do this. We've got Sam and Jack, who both went to Krootcon, as did I, but I had to drop halfway through. So I'm going to do the interviewing because I was there. But we're also going to talk about VTC, and that's something which has got a lot of publicity recently, team tournaments in general, I should say. So I think we'll have some really interesting chatter as well. And Sam and Jack actually did pretty well at VTC in something that it's a long running team tournament, which has been always has very high level attendees and high level teams. So it's a very exciting topic to talk about. But let's talk about Krootcon first. All right. So Krootcon was in Sydney. It was the weekend before last. So it feels like a month ago, but was literally only 10 days ago. So so it really does feel like a long time ago. So Krootcon, it was situated in Padstow, which is like Western Sydney. And it was a 72-player 6-round major. So just the major and 6 rounds. So it was a great event. It was situated in we were like in an auditorium almost, weren't we? So it was pretty cool. So that was nice. And yeah, basically good times were had. Now we might have touched upon this when me and Towse did the episode a couple of weeks ago about a couple of things and talked about kind of what was being expected and stuff like that. But I wanted to speak to you guys. So Sam and Jack didn't have too far to travel to this event, so it was just going on to there. So boys, I wanted to hear, and I can obviously have a little bit of input here, but how you guys kind of felt about the meta leading into Krootcon, right? Because this was a 6-round event, which are becoming more common in Australia in general, but especially in New South Wales, where we're starting to get a few of them. And there was obviously some good fake internet points up for grabs. How did you feel about the meta going into it? And yeah, how did you feel? And how did you feel about where your factions that you were going to play sat in that kind of notch as well?
Yeah, why don't you kick it off, Jack?
All right, so I suppose for me, meta's been a bit weird recently. Like, I've only really been focused on the couple of people that I know at events, and like the 4 or 5 that I'm like, yeah, if I have to pair into you, I need to know what you're playing. For example, one of my old testing partners, I knew all of a sudden he had Sunsharks in his tower list for the first time. So I definitely knew that tower were a problem. I definitely knew that Chaos and Demons were new, and I hadn't quite gotten enough practice into them. And Necrons, obviously, Sisters are still scary. Tyranids is I play Drukhari mostly, so Tyranids have been a faction I've beaten my head against for months on end now, trying to beat them. So those were the big ones. In terms of where Drukhari sit right now, I'm pretty confident they're pretty good. Like, they've got a lot. They've still got the same build diversity that they've had for ages, frankly. And with all the souping, like starting to put things like Harlequins back in, they're basically flexible. So I've found that depending on the event I go to, depending on what I think I'm going to play against, there's tools, and that's what I've been really enjoying about them. So yeah, I was pretty confident going in with Druk. Just wasn't sure what a couple of matchups would be.
So, you able to like quickly run us through like the broad strokes of your list, I guess, like just quickly.
Yeah. So I had.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
so
no,
I
I was
call
just.
I call the list good stuff in boats. So basically, it's a Harlequin detachment with a Shadow Seer, 2 troops with all guns, no weapons, 2 Star Weavers, 2 Void Weavers, and then it's pretty much Drukhari good stuff from there. Coven's detachment with combat loadout to get reroll wounds cheaper, and it's basically Drazar, a Succubus, a whole bunch of racks, 8 grotesques, only 9 incubi at this event, and yeah, pretty much that's it, and just a whole bunch of transports.
So what
basically just
Oh yeah, I was gonna say what coven were those set up as?
they were Splinter Blades, which is exploding 6s in combat, and Master Torturers, which is the 1 CP Coven's reroll wounds in combat strat. Costs 1 CP cheaper, so it's free on racks,
Oh wow.
and it's 1 CP on grotesques.
Right, yeah. So they're just full melee. And sorry, what was your other detachment? Did you have both of them were covens or mixed sort of coven detachments effectively with the succubus in there? So like all of your troops are racks, is that right?
Yep. So it was a single battalion of Druk, and it was just one big coven detachment allying in the succubus and allying in Draz because he's unaligned.
Yeah. Oh, true, because you can just make the one thing with Warlord Draz, I assume.
Oh, of course. Don't leave home without Warlord Draz.
So one thing, if I might just interrupt, I'd love to just maybe clarify to the listeners that you guys, I know Sam certainly was, but you guys were playing in teams literally the following week in a big event. Were you boys using this as a practice ground for that event?
I can speak for myself. One of the weird things that happened for all of it was list submission was very close for both events. So I actually had to submit the list for Krootcon after or just before the VTC list. And I basically didn't have enough practice with what I was running at Krootcon to feel comfortable with it in teams. It was still a very unknown list. I practiced for singles. So to me, I went back to mono for VTC, and this was more of a experiment locally, but I figured I had enough games on mono to cover me for my teams. So I played very different armies the entire time.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
But yeah, for me, Ben, like it was completely a practice for VTC because obviously, as I alluded to, I hadn't played an event since May, and so I just needed to get my more reps under my belt. So I think heading into Krootcon, I know it's going to sound like a lot, but 12 games. I had 12 games of Sisters between the start of September and I think Krootcon. So I had sort of got a bunch of games of Sisters, and then Krootcon's going to be 6 games, and then VTC was going to be another 5 or so games. So I just wanted to get reps in with Sisters, and I took the exact same list to Krootcon that I was going to take to VTC, knowing that obviously it has some weaknesses, but it's what I need to do and just get practice in. And I tried to go in with a mindset of it doesn't matter what the results are, as long as I keep practicing and get more info and get used to the list. That's what matters.
And so I guess to do the due diligence, what was your list? I assume Val, Celestine, Fight Last Canoness, and then some combination of Rets, Seraphim, and Repentia?
No Seraphim. Who are Seraphim? No,
Oh.
Seraphim's great. But it's funnily enough, the list. So the list I'm using in BitRep is the exact same list I took to VTC. So as you alluded to, so Val is the Warlord, Celestine, she was awesome, like all weekend, well for both weekends. Candace to Fight Last and Advance and Charge, and obviously Fight Last, obviously Word of the Emperor. Just a regular Dogmata with obviously the prayer upgrades, so she can cast twice and then just gets a miracle dice for herself. Repentia Superior to send 3 lots of 8 Repentia flying up the board and just go beat down some good things and enjoy all that. Then it was 3 lots of Zephyrim, so 2 lots of 8 with the banner, and then 1 lot of 7 with no banner, and 2 lots of 5 Rets and a Rhino, and 5 Sacrosants, and 3 lots of 5 Battle Sisters to fill it all up. So it's just a big battalion. So it was a bit cheeky only having 1 Rhino, but it actually worked out. I was able to, I guess, deep strike the Zephyrim, and in theory, I guess it was supposed to be pretty melee heavy, and like Sisters just score points, so just being able to melee trade and trade upwards a lot of the time is what is a play style I really enjoy. And it was something we wanted for teams and just to be a sort of a defender sort of list. And look, just try to give it out more testing for Krootcon. And it was sort of something I got inspired from, I guess, some of the WTC lists and do my own spin on it. So, yeah.
All right, I'm loving that. That's brilliant. Like, Sisters love that trading game, and they're one of the best at it. They do the missile trading so well, and they are fun. I've played them for a long time myself, so I can totally get why you're loving them. So, all right, look, so we've kind of covered a bit about the lists. Everyone we don't need to talk about too much good matchups, bad matchups, because we kind of covered that as well. Like the real big baddies in the world are the ones that just rack up the points or they're tabling now. It's either one or the other or both. So we all kind of know that's where it sits. We had 6 Tau players at this event. That's quite a lot. We had 8 Tyranid players in this event, and we had 9 Necrons. And another thing that's worth noting is we had 8 or 9 knights when you combined Chaos and Imperial. Knights are seem popular in the world, but I always thought they were very popular in Australia. But honestly, they're just such a good book now. Lots more people have picked them up, so we just got that kind of good book syndrome going on because they just score so many points, right? So that's the thing. So we had to watch out for, right? But let's talk about your games, boys. So we knew what we were expecting going in. We saw the pie charts and kind of the rough roundup I gave. Like, how did your rounds line up with your expectations of the meta? Like, why don't you, Sam? Let's start with you first. Talk to me about give me your your 5 games in a row. You don't have to go into too much detail. I just want to kind of know about how your matchups and how it kind of ended up. If there's any really spicy games or any spicy moments that you'd like to maybe dwell on for a couple of minutes, go for it, mate. So
what if we quickly go through? You can list your opponents, what you thought going in, how that matched your expectations, and if there's a most interesting game, a rundown.
Yeah, sure. So leading into the event, so like most events, we sort of got pairings the night before. And round 1, so Sisters, I played Parents of Creations of Bile. And I was like, this is a horrible matchup. I don't like this at all. I was like, of course.
That's what you get, mate. That's what you deserve.
Absolute greediness of me. And I match into the worst thing with melee trading. And I was messaging you, Ben. I messaged you, like, God damn it, of all the pairings I could get, Creations of Bile round. And I was like, great. What a great way to start. So playing into Blake, absolute legend. And it was a good game, funnily enough. So I went in with the game plan of knowing I couldn't get a melee. And in the end, I won't give a turn-by-turn synopsis, but I got the win. I beat Creations of Bile. I was very happy. So it was actually a good win. I was able just to keep things at range, and then when I made the trade, I traded up as much as I could and got into the 10-man Terminator brick with 8 Repentia, and they felt good. So it was a good game. And then round 2, though, of course, like most events, so as Jack was alluding to, one of his former housemates, the Tau double Sunshock dude, Cooper, absolute legend. Shout out to him. We've been, funnily enough, playing a lot of TTS, like 2 or 3 games leading up to the event, and lo and behold, we play round 2. And I play Tau on Mission 21, so no pregame moves and shenanigans, Dawn of War. And he goes first on some terrain which was less than ideal, and I got blown up pretty badly. But that's okay. And I tried to come back. We had made some plays. We kept it tight, but then wasn't able to claw back. But it was a good game. And I knew it wasn't going to be the best matchup, but we tried. It was definitely very first turn dependent in the sense of whoever gets to put the early pressure on first and maybe go into the Sun Sharks or just get positioning would help a lot. And well, he went first, and look, it is what it is. So
it's an awful matchup, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tau and Dawn of War, they're so fast now.
Yeah.
And Dawn of War, that I feel in in ninth edition is just so deadly. Like it feels like you need twice as much terrain as you do for the diagonals or the stuff like that. So it just feels like you need more than what you've got, even if it was adequate. So
Oh, yeah, so it was rough, but like, look, it was a good game. Like, I think it was a win, 20 or 30 points, I think was the final result. So, I mean, I got like 4 or 5 points out of a WTC differential scoring out of it. So I was pretty happy. It was a good game. Like Cooper, it was my first time playing Cooper in real life. So it was awesome. And actually, funnily enough, this event, I played everyone for the first time in real life. So it was really good to experience that. Round 3, I played against, Jack's, I guess, favorite faction, Drukhari. So Matt Lane, I know he's a local New South Wales boy, and it was an amazing game, absolute legend, like just super chill, super calm, and it was a great game. Funnily enough, one of the weird ones where I sort of got the early lead, and it got to the point where it was just a bit awkward. Like he said, if you do this, you win, and like I was pushing, and I went for a push, and then it whiffed badly, and he's like, oh, then I do this, and he came back massively, and in the end, it ended up being a draw, funnily enough. So it was 74-74 as it worked out. I was like, oof, it was just insane. Just I had the lead, and then just look, some things missed, but that's okay. It is what it is. So it was a good game though. So end of day 1, so I was 1-1-1. There you go, nice and even. Keep it like that.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
Very Thanos-esque. Very Thanos-esque. Yeah. And I'll go through day 2 quickly, then we can hand over to Jack. So day 2, I got the pairings again early. So I played Custo. I was against Custos, Emperor's Chosen Custodes. Another local Jack Blanche. So a local mate to yourself, Ben. Someone who beat you earlier in the week, and a little scared of Custodes. The no hit rerolls cutter, and I was actually messaging Towse for advice. Really, really hurt sisters. Repentia with no rerolls sucks. Absolutely sucks. So play around that. Got a narrow win on that one, so I think it was like a 10-point differential. Good game, amazing opponent. And yeah, it was a good game. And then round 5, I played against Silent King Necrons for the first time ever. And well, I tried to Unga Bunga, and my opponent had never played against sisters, so it was going to be a tight matchup. And in the end, Silent King Necrons just overwhelmed me in the end. And we made a bit of a mistake on the scoring, but in the end, it didn't really matter. He scored still like 90 whatever points, and I could only score 80 something. So, it is what it is. But good game, and just good to get experience and keep it relatively tight for teams purposes.
So next Nephilim equivalent, sisters need better secondaries to keep up with Necrons, yeah?
Exactly. Leap of faith, no math, all the way to the 50. No.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, I played against T-Sons. So Jezza Brody, New South Wales legend, absolute really good player. And it was T-Sons on mission 32, so it was quarters deployment, and nothing against the terrain, it just is what it is. The train just led for sisters, like they were open topped, just to be shot with duplicity T-Sons, and I had no chance. So it was we ended over very quickly, and Jezza got the win there, but it was a good event. So I went 2-1-4, 3 all up. So it was a good event, really enjoyed it, and yeah.
So did he just like teleport the Terminators, and like 2 Terminators picks up his sister squad almost, and or you 3 hose that squad, you 3 that squad, you 3 that squad, and just like brrr.
Yeah, like literally I deployed, and I said to him, I can't literally do anything because Jez and I have a good relationship, like we talk a lot and stuff like that, and he's like, yeah, you're a bit screwed in this matchup, but look, it is what it is. So we sort of like walked through it and like talked how things would go out, and I was like, yeah, this is how I win, because I've played the T-Sons matchup a couple of times. So as I alluded to, Jordan McGregor, the guy who won MOAB, I've played against him on TTS like a bunch of times. Funny enough, I think I've played his T-Sons list like 17 times with various lists, so I'm relatively familiar with T-Sons, and it was just like he could outrange me and shoot me and just ruin my day, and then I couldn't do anything back. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Like, haha, I'll sit my Terminators 30 inches back.
Yeah.
This is with your really guaranteed 24-inch threat range.
Yeah, it's just like
no touching further away.
Yeah.
Well done, Sammy. It sounds like a good practice. So you got amongst it and got it done, and that's what it's all about. Like we're getting 6 more solid competitive reps on it, sets us up for the next part of the the next VTC chat, which I'm really excited to talk about. So, all right, Jack, how did you go, mate, with your 6 games?
So oddly enough, I drove down to Sydney on Friday night. Pairings came up, and there was a statement a week before when I was playing my mate Cooper on TTS, and I was like, I'm so annoyed that you have Sunsharks now. He's like, don't worry, it's a 70-person event. You won't play me. Get a message on Friday night from Cooper being like, let's go. And I'm like, oh boy. Because we've played a whole bunch. We were housemates during COVID. So the Eldar Tau matchup was fixed almost. And so round 1, here we are, Vital Intelligence, and it was a 1-point game. He beat me by a point in the end. But really good game. Disappointing not to win the first, but again, that weird bittersweet. I was very happy for him. I was like, it's the first time he's beaten me in a Warhammer tournament, and I was like, all right, go all the way, go win. Next round, I played against Demons. Luke Greco, one of the guys that's come just back into the hobby. Great guy, awesome list. Played some different secondaries, and in the end, that ended up being a relatively good Drukhari win. Melee trading into melee trading. Like, Druk is still one of the best armies at running fast and punching things in combat.
And because
Then
Rex will be pretty good there, right? Because you've got like your poison weapons, rerolling to wound against demon stuff, not super high AP, like just pretty efficient. Is that right?
yeah, you also get around -1 to wound auras with poison because it's
Oh, yeah.
it's unmodified. So
Yeah.
yeah, they are vicious in that matchup.
Yeah.
Weirdly better than their grotesque counterparts half the time. Like into Be'lakor, I'd much rather 5 racks than I would 4 grotesques.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then round 3, I paired into the other Canberran at the event, Rowan, who I have played countless TTS games of Drukhari against Tyranids over the various states of Tyranids. So I knew pretty well what I was in for. And after a very hard-fought game and Rowan graciously letting my sleep-deprived brain take back 1 critical move at the end, it was a 1-point victory for Drukhari.
Oh.
So yeah, that was bloody and hard fought. And again, it's on Dawn of War, which is just Tyranids and Druk tends to be a vicious melee anyway. And on Dawn of War, there's no other option than kind of running at each other and just going for it. So
What was the move, if it's worth sharing?
there were 2 spore mines on an objective with
Yeah.
Reaper of Obliterax nearby. And I had to grab that objective to score primary at the end of the game, and also get the secondary or the tertiary for the mission. So I had 6 Corsairs and 2 racks trying to charge onto the objective. And I basically had to. The correct move was to charge the Corsairs into 1 spore mine and stay out of 3 of the other. And then charge the racks into the other one, so that at least something will survive on the objective.
Yeah.
And not do the dum-dum thing like I initially did, which is Unga Bunga 6 Corsairs in and hope that Rowan doesn't roll,
Oh,
6
like the
wounds.
2 5-ups and then just all
Yep.
the
Which is what he did. Then we were sitting there chatting. I was like, I should have done it like this. And Rowan generously said, no, it's all right.
Just do that.
Yeah, just do that.
Yeah.
So,
What a good lad.
Yeah, honestly. So then round 4, I paired into Eldar. So Ulthway Eldar, Mitchell Corrigan, great player. And that was probably what I consider the hardest game I played, because Eldar v Eldar is always just like, no one knows what they're doing. It's all just units running at each other and trading. That game, I'm pretty sure there was 6 models alive at the end of the game. Like, between both armies, it was just vicious.
Every Eldar life is sacred, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was a really, really hard fought game. I think it was only like a 4-point victory or something, very close again. And then round 5 is the one I'm foggy on. Oh yeah, round 5 I paired into Tau again. So I had another Tau player, and I don't know if I was channeling something weird after my earlier game with Cooper, but something came over me, and that game ended up being like 92-24 to Druk.
Whoo! Working through some issues there.
Yeah, basically. I don't think the Druk were particularly happy about what happened earlier. But again, no Sunsharks in that list, which really highlighted to me just what they do for that matchup. Drukhari can't kill them.
I think they take Tau to a different level, if I'm honest. They give Tau, they make Tau so deadly. Like in terms of like alpha potential, which is just like it's really hard to deal with. Especially screening them out is like makes it even better for Tau to like do what they want. It feels like.
What's your answer to them? Is it like, here's some fusion pistols, like 2 Dark Lancers or something, and some like hopes and dreams?
Yeah, it's 2 smites, a couple of fusion guns, a Dark Lance, and hoping my opponent flies it off the board on accident.
Wait,
but
do you
Yeah,
have a
great
do you
odds.
have like 2 effective smites from this character?
from the Shadowseer, and I also ran Corsairs at this event. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Eldar Corsairs are an infantry unit that randomly have a little Farseer in them, which is pretty cool. But no, the answer is there is no real solution.
Yeah.
Like, the other problem in the matchup and why I think they're really good for Tau is because of Kayun. If they go second, they can just throw them up in the air. So
Yeah.
they have such alpha strike potential, but they're also completely safe on the backswing.
Yeah,
But,
because you take the Warlord.
They're
trait for
always going to be
redeploying
able to
for
use them, eh?
and-
they're
Yeah.
always going to do something.
They're always going to
Yeah,
be able to use them at some point. You're never going to be able to.
Yeah, and you can
Yeah.
pull them out if you go second, you can pull them out and then just have them appear on turn 3 when they're full exploding, like they get exploding 6s right away, and then they can try for exploding 5. Yeah.
Yeah, and you also then get time to shoot off anything that could contest them, at which point they get 2 or
Yeah.
3 turns of uninterrupted. They also have double pivot, so they can pivot after they move.
Okay.
They're great.
Just like take it away from Eldar planes, but give it to
I know.
Tau and then give it even better to like Harpy. Oh, and the AdMech ones. Yeah.
Yeah, Eldar planes, despite being the only ones that had it in 8th edition, are now one of the very few that don't have it.
Oh no, there's still a bunch of Imperial planes that don't have it. AdMech do.
Oh, they're
but,
not
like,
real.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And yeah, speaking of Imperial, my round 6 to finish it all up was Imperial Guard, which are always a dangerous thing to see floating around at the high end of a table, especially after their new exploding 6s ignore the line of sight cover. So that list was
Because
really nice.
You were 4-1 at that point. Is that right?
Yeah. So lost the
And
first
you
one,
rock
and then
up
I'm
to some
basically
guard.
trying to submarine. Yep. Rock up to some guard, and it was 5 Taurox Punishers,
Oh.
which, if you know the durability of elves, is a very bad time.
They're like 20-something shots from the chassis, right? Like
Yeah,
per
20,
truck?
20 shots. Strength 4, neg 1 because of his trait, 1 damage. That is perfect for ripping apart Eldar.
I reckon some strength 6 neg 2 chain cannons go pretty nicely as well. But definitely, yeah, that's peak efficiency into some elves.
Thankfully, they are T6, and thankfully as well for that match, Eldar went first. So Voidweavers are fast enough with light that they can actually get around some of the back ruins on turn 1. And they shot out all the mortar teams turn 1 and basically just tried to delete out as much of the ignore line of sight as I could. Guard cracked back, had 1 turn where their shooting was slightly inefficient, like it just didn't work perfectly, spiked a couple of saves, and by that point it wasn't over, but Druk were on top of them.
Yeah, so like you set up for a go turn 2, and like so their turn 1 of bottom of 1 shooting phase was what, like a standard deviation below par sort of deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unlucky. Notable examples include a Demolisher rolling 4 auto wounds out of 4 shots, and then just all of them being saved by the Voidweaver, and then
yeah,
the exact same thing happening with a Punisher where a Voidweaver 8. I think the same Voidweaver 8. I think 11 out of 12 shots on a 4-up invul. So it was a bit more than 1 standard deviation below expected value. But so
go buy a lotto ticket, dude.
It's a 4-up life, though, isn't it?
It is.
You know?
Live and die by the 4-up invul. So that ended me up 5-1.
Well done.
Which was really interesting because then I had to immediately run over to Cooper's table and see how he was doing because we were both playing for 3rd place in our respective games. Unfortunately, he went down. Chris got enough points to pit me right at the end, so I ended up 4th at Krootcon, which I'm still really happy with.
Great effort with the dead faction, dude.
Careful.
Well, well done to both of you. Been killing it.
Yeah.
So, are we good to? Let's talk about some VTC.
Yeah, you're in charge, man.
Let's do it. Right. So, Victorian Team Championships is run biannually. There's a winter and a summer. They're basically 3 months apart. this year anyway. So it's ironic to call them winter and summer, but
I
basically
didn't
the
know
one I went
Australia
to.
had a winter, Ben.
Well, they do in Victoria, mate. I can guarantee you there. I was there for VTC winter, and it was freezing, mate. It was just like being in England. So basically, 4 mans in winter, 5 in summer, because popular demand. So that was pretty amazing. So these Jack and Sam were both on a team. I'm going to give a spoiler out. The boys got 5th. So that was a great job. So it's a very frequented event by high level players. It's probably one of the longest, I wouldn't say longest running, but it's one of the most the old stalwarts of the eastern part of Australia. When it comes to team tournaments, it's been going for years and years, and it's a very popular event. So I don't know how many teams did we have, Sam or Jack? If anyone knows.
It was 18 in the end, so there was 17. There was a Mercs team, which got made up to make 18, so everyone got to play, which is great.
Oh yeah, the Merc team of full Space Marines.
Yeah.
So that was 9. That was just a 90 people in total then.
Yeah,
fantastic. So to put a little bit of scheme on this, I actually was messaging Jack about something totally. So it's about another team's event actually, because he can't get enough. He needs to go to every event. He's turning into me. And I was messaging him about that, and I was like, "Aren't you flying to VTC?" And he said, "No, we're driving." And I just said to him, "Why? Why are you driving there?" Because so it's a bit different when you live in Canberra, but for where I live, to drive to Melbourne is about 12, 13 hours. And well, it's 12 hours if you get a good run. Now, these guys were traveling down the Friday before a long weekend. So probably one of the biggest long weekends outside of Easter, if not the biggest outside of Easter. And so the roads were going to be packed. It was extra penalties for if you did anything naughty on the road, like speeding or anything like that. And they decided to drive down there. Right, boys, I want to hear about who you took down, what factions they were playing. But first of all, I want you to give us the rundown and the answer of why you decided to drive down there. How far is it from Canberra? And because it's not actually indirectly in Melbourne either, is it? So
also, best story from the drive, best road trip story.
Yeah, give us a story.
I've got that one. Don't worry. That's
yes,
fine.
good.
Yeah, so on screen we've got the team up. So from left to right, so myself. So I was playing Sisters, and we got Jack, who was playing Druk. Then we got Rowan in the middle, who was playing Nids. Then we got Aaron Warren, so he was playing Chaos Knights, who was souped with some Chaos Demons. And then Cody Harlequin Hunter playing Imperial Knights. So just a little backstory for later. So yeah, and we sort of had a team. We sort of went in with the expectation. So all of us played in the ANZ Team Champs earlier in the year. And look, we just had a group of four ACT locals and then Jack to come down and look, just play another teams event and sort of learn from our experiences at the ANZ Team Champs and try and improve and test our wits against a stronger field of competition and go from there. So we didn't really go in with expected lists other than basically myself. I would have loved to play two Nids, but Rowan is a loyal, diehard Nid expert and Nid player and only has an army. So with teams events, you can only run one Nids, and well, Rowan's running Nids. So it is what it is. So I got Sisters up and ready, and look, we knew we sort of needed another defender, and well, Sisters were going to do the job. And I think heading in, it was going to be good for me as well to actually practice being a defender per se, because at ANZ Team Champs and my previous team's experience, I've always been that sort of attacker role. And I guess the way I play, it doesn't actually lead to that per se. I don't see myself as the most aggressive player in the world. So trying a defender list, and Sisters was the answer. So yeah, and then I guess Jack, do you want to hand off with the best road trip story?
Oh yeah, really important question. What was the team called, lads?
Well, this is not for PG viewing, so people under 13, block your ears. It was Pacific Rim, and then what do you do for an occupation?
Sam, it's just spill it. It was Pacific Rim job. You really dedicated to painting the bases of your models, right? Every model gets its base painted.
We are the best at Rim jobs. Yes.
Yeah. All your bases painted. All right, Jack, road trip story.
So I will note beforehand that team name existed from a previous New South Wales event that the Canberrans came up to and we came first. and Sam was not on that team. So because we needed a fifth, we loyally invited him.
Oh, so
He was
what I'm hearing is there's a reason you guys didn't do as well at VTC than the other event.
Look, I'm not going to name names or anything, but one of them we came first, and the other, no. Jokes aside.
There's just like there's these two dots, and you're leaving to us to connect them. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Just gonna sit here and nod my head for no reason. Like,
Yeah. Okay. I'm picking
no,
out
but
what you're not putting down.
yeah, no. The best road trip story, because obviously for me, I live up in Newcastle, so it was 4.5 hours to get down to Canberra, and then I stayed there overnight because thankfully I have some family down there. And got up in the morning, picked up Sam. We went in one car, and the other three went in the other. And it wasn't until about Albury, which is about 3.5 hours down, that we accidentally deviated from course. We found ourselves not on the Hume Highway, but instead on a mysterious, slightly windy, very small road. And then we got told to turn left on a dirt road. And at that point, I think up until that point, we're a bit like, this still seems like a highway, good enough, it's 110. At that point, like no markings, no speed limit, no nothing. I was like, okay, where the hell are we? It took about 20 minutes to get through that, and we eventually reconnected with the highway. But I think the golden moment was the bit where we messaged the other car. And I think I told Sam, I'm like, can you ask them if they went down a dirt road? And the response we got back was like, no, why? And so mysteriously we disappeared off on this weird path. And then the car proceeded constantly throughout the various next trips to just send us off on weird little goose chases with its GPS. So
it's a serious
Google
stitch up, mate.
Maps or what map service were you using to like direct you guys?
I think it was Apple Maps for most of it, and I'd love to blame my co-pilot for all of it, but I'm the one that punched in the map the entire time, so I actually do have to take full responsibility for our weird little road trip.
Actually, real tangent time. When at NZTC, Francis and I were trying to go up north to Finn's place for a barbecue because he lives like in the middle of nowhere up north, and like there was a Google Maps nightmare going on with that one. There was one time where like we were going up to a thing. It says like take the next left to remain on What's It Road, and I'm like okay, I turn left, and then it's like and gives the alert of like change direction, and we end up doing a loop, and we're like this is the same intersection, and it's like it says again take the next left, and you look at the map and it clearly shows you going right, but it clearly said left. And like this time Francis was paying more attention, and we're just like huh, like literally told me go left. I'm like okay boss.
It's a New Zealand left. It's the other way around. Come on, buddy. You should know this already.
Your other left. Come on.
Yeah, my bad, team. So I can relate to really questionable map directions. So yeah. Anyway, dirt road aside, you've made it to the event, yeah?
Finally.
So what's next, Ben? Do you have a question lined up to get us back?
I do. So right, you've touched upon the team, right? But I don't really want you to deep dive the lifts. I want you to talk about both of you have like just kind of talk between you two can just bounce off each other, and talk about kind of the roles in the team, because 5-man it's an odd number, right? You can't are you taking a tech and 2 defenders and 2 attackers, or what are you doing? So I'd love to hear about that, and kind of you mentioned something about a Harlequin killer. That's worth bringing up now as well, I reckon. So why don't we give us a little thing we can talk about that. And kind of, why don't you tell, like, obviously there's some specific bad guy stuff in the whole teams. Like there's some factions that need taking down a peg. Like what have you put in your kind of as the tech in for those ones as well?
Yeah, so I think leading up to the event, so we sort of knew what factions we were going to take always, because with these teams events, like it's a 5-round event, and the people that have fun, like we're not there to sort of, we would love to obviously win the event, but we're not going to go everyone buy the most meta armies and tech for it and try and take the event out. We want people to have fun and do as they need to with the lists and go from there within some parameters. So leading up to the event, I think 2 or 3 weeks before this submission, we had a little Skype or the Discord call and actually went through a Google sheet of all the factions and a list of some generic lists you could expect. So And we tried to have pairings into each of them. So, funnily enough, similar to Team Poland 40K, just did an English, their first actually English podcast. And this is something they did. So, with Pumbaa. So, what he does is go through all the meta lists, and everyone have at least 2 attackers that can go into this list. And that's something we try to do in ahead of time. And basically, that's how we sort of tailor the list. So, leading in, I knew, like, right. So, myself wanted to sort of be a defender. With sisters, they sort of lean to that, but also have the option to counter, I guess, some small arms. And then, so Jack was going to play either Eldar Soup of some sorts leading into the event and landed on Druk. And so we knew we could use him relatively attacking, and he's a good enough player to score points as needs be. And then the other 2 Knight players, we could use it as a pinch. So where there was a meta or an army we could pinch with both Knight players, we used it for that. And then Rowan with his Nids was just going to unga-bunga some people and destroy him with double harpy. So
he was our bad guy. Like, yeah. Because there's a weird balance between actually having lists that counter just the meta stuff and also just going, what if we just run the meta?
Right,
Yeah.
like he was your big bad villain of your team sort of thing, the big bad meta army.
Yeah, much to his disdain, the decision we fell on for him was double Harpy, double Swarm Lord, or double Hive Tyrant, and like Warriors and all that kind of jazz.
Double Warrior Brick or something?
Yeah, double Warrior
Brick.
Brick.
I've heard I've heard Rowan is a rare Australian snowflake in his list preferences. Yeah.
I guess so. Funny enough, leading into the event, everyone but me is. I'll say this: I love everyone, but they're all snowflakes. Everyone in our team loves to create their own unique list and do nothing else. That's what they want to do. Like, and whereas I'm the one who wants to, I guess I follow the meta. I want to copy like the generic list with a bit of tailoring. Everyone in our team loves to create their own list. So, but Rowan felt bad having to take quite a meta list in the sense of double Harpy, double Warrior Brick, 2 Hive Tyrants, and some other things. So
I don't know if we can share the name on the stream or not, but that was very amusing.
Oh yeah, Tim's comment. Yeah. We're not going to repeat what was said. So podcast viewers, too bad. Watch YouTube.
Sorry.
But yeah. So alrighty. So yeah, you had one big bad, and then you had a few different people to do some different carry on. And so how did you find that worked out in practice? Like, was Rowan able to go get put on the spot and deliver the big 20s? Could you pair him into the right sort of lists to have Tyranids just go smash? Did Sam defend all that sort of good stuff?
I think the interesting thing for me going into it is there's a fun subculture within the Canberran team where Aaron is such an amazing lad, but at ANZTC he was the bus. At every other team event we've had, he was the bus. Like, no questions asked, go into it, do whatever. So for this event, we actually sat down and we're like, no, boys, all right, let's give Aaron some actual like good matchups. Let's let him be the spotlight. Round 1, we bust him. Round 2, we bust him. And the first 2 weren't deliberate. It was just like, okay, this is just how it works. And we realized that that's how it was working in our pairings every single time, is he was getting bust.
Is he your Chaos Knights player, just to keep track?
Yeah. So he was playing Chaos Knights and Demons. Cody was talking a lot of mad smack the night before the event as we were doing our final pairings. You know, we go, oh, what do you think about this? This could be a yellow, and just be like, green. And we're like, all right. He ended up actually being scarier than Rowan, in my opinion. Like, both of them did really well. So both of them went 5-0 through the entire event.
So this is Rowan on Tyranids and Cody on Knights?
On Imperial Knights, yeah.
Yeah.
So they became our attackers.
Mm-hmm.
Both won all of their games. Both were in the top 10 of total point scorers at the event individually. So they did really well as attackers. And then, Sam and I were in the end on defender duty, basically just sitting there trying to play interesting matchups and keep them close and occasionally get paired into something we could go and exploit. So,
yeah. Did you guys employ the age-old technique of windmill slam down Knights as defender, go pick the light table and score? Yeah.
A personal favorite.
El Clasico. Yeah. I can't remember the correct pronunciation of his last name, but Josh Migalushi is infamous for having gone 200-0 at the 2 NZTCs this year on Imperial Knights. Notable, he was doing pairings for his team in both of these.
Not biased at all. Just happens,
No,
Just happens.
but yeah. So it's definitely a thing that can do work.
Yeah. We discovered the secret Cody technique in our first teams event. I'll only touch on it briefly, but for the team event we won, we were taking Imperial Knights, Chaos Knights, Tyranids when they were like new.
Like peak busted Tyranids, like
Peak busted
Maliceppers.
Tyranids.
Yep.
Then we took triple Storm Surge Tau. And
before they got their
triple-
points hike, yeah.
Yep, and triple Wraith Knight Elder with Avatar of Cain. So we just literally put big lists up, and we realized real quick that windmill slamming triple Storm Surge on light terrain kind of just solved a lot of its problems.
Yeah.
And turns out the same applies to a Crusade with calculated targeting. So,
Yeah.
It's bonkers. Who would have known? Who would have known?
Profound.
Honestly.
And so you had that lineup. So does that mean you weren't so much setting up your double knight pins if there were lists that didn't have anti-tank? Is that
Well, that was one of the funny things sort of heading in. We wanted to sort of pin with Imperial Knight or Imperial Chaos Knights a bit and have that as an option, or leave them to maybe later in the pairings, depending on the team obviously we paired into, where we could pin them, or we felt comfortable enough they could take something off the board. Funnily enough, a lot of the opponents we had though, there was a bunch of lists where they just double counted knights, and so I was like, oh, we couldn't really lead with first defender sometimes. So I know, for example, round one, there was an Argent Shroud Sisters list, which was just all the melter, and unfortunately, Aaron had to eat that to the face in the sort of bottom end of the pairings, and that's one of the reasons didn't think we led with Imperial Knights in that matchup. So we sort of were able to pin sometimes, but it didn't work out as well as we would have hoped, probably.
The other master pin we were trying to set up for most of the event was a lot of the teams had Blood Angels floating around as their Space Marine Legion.
Mm-hmm.
And we were trying to pin by throwing Knights out as our second defender so that Drukhari could be on the bottom end to catch Blood Angels. So it was almost like trying to catch that bad matchup. Although, as we found out, the best laid plans often go astray, and often when we think, oh, this is brilliant, they won't expect it. That's exactly what they're expecting. So,
yeah, that ties in actually quite interestingly to how something we found in our NZTC event. So we had, just quickly, Bugs, Chaos Knights or War Dogs, Hail of Doom, Drukhari, and Necrons. And so we had, I was on the Chaos Knights, and rather than doing the we'll put this on a light table up first, it was sort of, I feel like I'm generally fine on anything that's not a heavy table. And so we had someone early on in the pairings be like, okay, cool. Someone that doesn't care, like Bugs or Necrons or literally any of our lists, go just take the heavy table with our table pick, right? So then I can never get stuck on it. And then I would get chucked in as often our second defender, because I feel like that's the most likely place where you can try catch someone, because you'll get presented with two of the remaining three teams to catch something out. And so twice, rounds 2 and rounds 3, because we had Hail of Doom, and my Chaos Knights was like max chain cannons on 5 idiots. On 9 of the War Dogs, and so Harlequins, which were in both of those teams, are really bad for Hail of Doom, and theoretically should flip to being, we thought, quite good for me. And so by putting the Chaos Knights in as second defender, that was where it's like, okay, this is where we found we could catch something like that, which worked, I think, in 3 or 4 of our pairings. That worked quite nicely. And so just quickly, for anyone that's like, this is the wrong time for it, but anyone that's in here going like, what is a pairings? So in teams, you have 5 lists on each team, and effectively assume every team has cards. There's a roll off to see who's going to first choose the table. And there's 5 tables. Typically, a heavy, 3 medium, and a light is roughly that. So both teams put down a first defender. So they put 1 card down, face down. Simultaneously will reveal, and then you know it's up. Then each of those defenders gets presented with 2 attackers, one of which they'll so simultaneously reveal all 4 of those cards put down. Simultaneously choose the first card put down, gets to choose one of the second ones, Then they choose a table, and then they go off, and that's 2 of the games sorted. And then, and so there's that step, which is different sets of simultaneous things, and you basically repeat it, but this time 1 of the 3 gets put down, the other 2 will be presented, and you choose, and then the last one will fall out. TNG goes into this a bit more detail in their recent episode, but that's a really quick rundown of the process. And so you can do, you can have some things where, like, if a list doesn't have any anti-tank and they get put down as a first defender, and you present them with 2 knights lists, while they're just like unlucky, because if you can't punch through that big stuff, it's probably going to be tough for you. And yeah, there's a whole lot of interesting tactics of, like, do you try and take like really good matchups early, but then your bottom end might go badly, or do you want to just take an okay matchup to pull out a problem army, and so there's a bunch of, like, you can go, oh, this looks really good immediately, but it could screw your later parts of pairings. There's a whole lot of thinking and planning that you can do, and it's really
it's a game within itself, and it's one of the main attractions of team tournaments in general, right? So it's a huge part of it. Yeah, but definitely check out that TNG episode, because they go into real detail about it. So that's really good. So look,
anyways, yeah, that was a massive tangent on pairings. And
no, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
So look, oh yeah, no, you're right, mate. You're right. So look. One thing I wanted to touch upon, right, is, so you've done all this pre-work. You know, you've taken your faction for 12 games before. You know, your new selected S tier faction. Sorry, I have to say it. But yeah, so anyway, list reveal comes out. Solly, who's the TO event, Matt Morris Solly, everyone knows him. He's a TO. He does the round pairings. Him and Chelsea. I remember watching it. And not actually knowing who's on each team, but I went through it afterwards. And then here we are. You've seen everyone's list. There's worth noting some of the people on these teams. So I do have BCP open, so I'm going to run through. So we had one team which had Eric Lavercombe from Captain of Team Australia, Hayden Walduck, Jeremy Martino, and Dean Simbeck on there. So that's 4 very prominent players. We had the Krootcon boys that we've had on here before. They were there. The Kiwis had Adam Camilleri on there. Who else did we have? We had loads of great players and great teams. Solly didn't play this one. We had some
there was
Adam Napier
Alliance.
Yeah, we had Liam Hackett and some of his teams from Normal Blokes. It was actually Northside Alliance and Normal Blokes, but they'll probably be doing their own things. We won't touch on anything that they did. We've got Adam Napier was there with basically 4 New South Wales boys. One of them now lives near him in South Australia. So that's, there's just some, and there was a few good Queensland teams, as there always is. So it was a pretty stat thing. You saw the list come out. You obviously went straight to a couple of problem teams. I don't want you to go too deep into this, but how did you feel matched up into those, let's say, top 3, top 4 teams that, I kind of just touched on?
Terrible. Absolutely terrible. They are absolutely terrifying.
Brilliant. That's great. That's what I expected to be. But,
No, see, this is why Sam wasn't captain. Easy matchups. Those
Krootcon lads aren't that good. The other lads are just all right.
They're great because they're the ones where you take your book on like pairings and you take everything on how to play the game. You throw it against the wall and go, all right, let's go. Like, it's time to pull the rabbits out of hats.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, obviously, Eric, I've obviously speak to Eric a bit, and he was like, I've brought the list he brought was to counter his old build, and I'm not even joking, which I love that. He's like out metaing himself now, which I think that's hilarious to touch on. So, I think that pretty much sums it up. I don't think there's much more detail apart from literally listing people's lists up. Let's get into the juicy stuff.
I'm just thinking, Thanos meme, I use a GSC to destroy the GSC.
Yeah.
It nearly killed me.
Oh, sorry, man. Couldn't help myself.
No, you're right. You're right. I would laugh, but I've not even seen it. So, So, yeah, look. You knew your matchup first up. Why don't we start with round 1? Kind of tell me how you felt about pairings going in. your expectation if you went to the effort of projecting a score of the round? Kind of how, if you made that mark or not, any key moments in certain games, and how you boys personally did as well. So,
Yeah,
here
sure.
he is. He's got the spreadsheet out. Look at him go.
Of course, Sam has a spreadsheet, Ben. What do you mean?
Any excuse to whip the sheet out. Any excuse.
Yeah, and look
Also-
at that poor cropping as well. You can everyone can squint and not make anything out. Easy, lads.
Also, before Sam goes on, the other thing I'll note, going back to why the driving was good, is it gave us 7 hours to talk about pairings.
Yeah, true. Yeah, very true. That is good.
Yeah.
7.5 with a few dirt road detours. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so heading to the event, so one of the things we learned from ANZ Team Champs is obviously you hear about a pairings matrix and you want to follow that, but we sort of, at the event of ANZTC, we sort of fell away from the pairings matrix a bit. Like we sort of went a bit off feelings, and we did well doing that per se for smaller events, but at the big 8-man teams, we did okay with it, but we didn't do as well as we probably could have. And so for heading into the event, we really wanted to follow the matrix and go through it pretty well and really practice it. And well, what better chance to do it than VTC? So on screen, we sort of have a colored grid of what our pairings were and what our matrices looked like in heading to round one. So round one pairings, we've got a pretty good team. So we've got a Victorian team headed with Stewie Trainer. So Stewie Trainer is a very good Victorian player. I had Boyd Morale, so he's another VTC player. Then had Augustus Hebblewhite, Gus. He's a pretty well-known Elder player throughout. And then had some other great players. Reese, he was also another VTC player. And Olivia. So Olivia was the sisters player with Ivan Stroud, Melter Spam. So it was a good event, good pairings heading in. So, of course, when you know your round one opponent, you sort of go through and you sort of test things out and you sort of get a feel for what you want to do. The night before we got there, went through some practice pairings, felt like one of us playing the opponent, see what they could do, and go from there. Maybe, if you want to touch on a bit more from Jack.
Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest things that we learnt from ANZTC, as opposed to this, was at ANZTC, we did all the matrices, we had an idea, but we significantly underestimated how important the pairings were and how mechanically difficult it is to position armies within 8 teams. So 5 presented a nice, better alternative where it feels a bit more natural, there's less moving parts, and in 8 teams you can really set up traps going all the way through. Same with this. So I felt a lot more confident sitting there and throwing cards down, and it was weird almost watching the feedback from this going, wow, we're actually kind of hitting the things that we're seeing. It also meant that because we were practicing it before, we weren't as surprised or shocked or nervous. And a lot of it's getting that moment one pairing nerves out of the way, so you stand there with a bit more confidence. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. So I think that's great. I want to move on to round 2 now. So did everything kind of pair out all okay in the games towards the?
Yeah. So round one, so we played against the team, and it actually ended up in the draw. So the other team on the higher side of the draw, but look, we were happy with the draw. It was some tight games. Things didn't go to time or as planned as we liked, but and Cody got the first of his Harlequin kills, which was great. And then awesome, love that, getting the tally going.
I will note as well, there's a memorable moment for me in this round. Drazar's Incubi got shot off on round 5 by Admech. 20 Rangers picked up his Incubi. 4 las cannon chickens looked at Drazar because the opponent took Assassinate. Drazar rolled 8 out of 8 4-up invols to not die. And then we were going back after the round, and I was like, if they scored that 4 points for Assassinate, they won the round. So
that's disgusting.
Yeah, look,
that's hilarious. That's just 40k, right? In a nutshell, that is just on a team scale, which is just bonkers. So
yeah, and obviously, mate, you're a professional coin flipper. Just embrace it.
Yeah, no. It's only because I write Drazar on the back of my shirt that he behaves.
Right.
Is it the full thing? Is it Drazar Master of Blades?
No, it's
the whole thing? Oh.
It's my petition to make Drazar 10 points cheaper. So it's Drazar minus 10.
Nice. Yeah. Keep fighting the good fight.
All right, so round 2. So you got to draw there. So that's not uncommon, right? Like in team events, especially the 5-man ones. How did you went to round 2? So you had lunch, had a bit of time to look at some pairings, right? So that would have been good. Who did you face off against in round 2?
Yeah, so for round 2, we versed on the team energy dense and nutrient rich. It was a local Victorian team, so from Ringwood, Victoria, so where the event was hosted, and yeah, so it was an interesting team. So funnily enough, in terms of pairings, we did match up amazingly well. They had a scary bio list: T-Suns, Harlequins, Necrons, and Imperial Knights. And then yeah, so I went up as first defender, I think, from memory, and look, of course, got Bile, and like everyone else hated Bile, and by me taking up the Bile matchup and trying to score points, it opened up the pairings for everyone, which is something I was sort of willing to do, and we wanted it to sort of happen. And look, it happened, and yeah, and we ended up getting a win in the end. So I played into Bile, and Cody played his second Harlequins matchup, and lo and behold, got a big win. So he got like I think a 16-4 or 15-5, one of those like 17-3, maybe like a big win like that. So, and I think that in that game, like 2 or 3 Void Weavers, he got a big win despite 2 or 3 Void Weavers, like max shotting, max wounding, max damaging one of these big knights and taking it like almost all the way down. So it was absolutely bonkers. So yeah.
So Sam, just do you remember what your other pairing option was? You were presented with Bile and what else?
Yeah, I don't 100% remember. I think it might have been T-Suns from memory. I think.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
But I think
But
T-Suns across the board, we had a better matchups with. It could have also been they defended with Bile and I went into. I can't remember from 100%.
No worries.
I want to say I defended though. But.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the story with your Knights Harlequins thing? Was that just like your player playing well, or did you just happen to get them on lighter terrain into the boats and just elves don't like big guns shooting them?
Yeah, I think it was I think the latter of the two. So, funny enough, like lunch. So a night player was running around trying to finish some things off, and this list was a bit different. It wasn't the usual eight boats, 8 troops sort of spam. It was 4 troops and like a bunch of Void Weavers, and it had the Haywire bikes. And I said to him, "Look, you've got a good matchup here. I swear you'll be okay." It's like, "Oh, I don't know. It's like, you've got this. I believe in you." And we believed in him. Sorry, not me, but. And yeah, he just got a good matchup and just went burr with mortal wounds.
Nice.
Calculated targeting, baby. Targeting.
Calculated. I suppose the other one, going back to like dealing with evil menaces in the meta. I got paired into Necrons this round, and Necrons are. Well, Drukhari is one of the matchups that Necrons really fear. So one of the things that we knew was we really want to adjust our pairings so that I get them. Because at worst, it's like a 10-10 grindy game. But I'm probably one of the very few armies we had that could blow them out. And that's another thing.
Yeah.
That's another thing you consider in pairings a fair bit is if the game goes wrong, which side actually gains point momentum. So it's like, yeah, this is a 10-10 normally. It's like, okay, but if it deviates, who's more likely to blow the other one out? It's like another level of pairing prep.
Also, keeping Necrons to a 10-10 is a win in itself. Do you know what I mean? So if you can dance with them at a time, and Drukhari have the pace, and did you have the grenade, the Vitae in there?
No, I don't run Vitae. I tend to just run a lot more boats than normal, like Venoms and really fast moving. But again, even in that game, I think it was a 16-4 to Drukhari.
Yeah, nice. That's such a good win. That's a round spinner. You know, you get those against those kind of things which are, you know, Necrons are built. They have to be 20 in people with their score, kind of the way they can score secondaries. It's the expectation. They're there to get the 15 plus wins. And I think that you can really force the issue and not give them any breathing space, which I think is something that not many armies can do at the pace that you can, even with your racks, you know. Just imagine if witches were still solid, like were still cheap, you know, you'd be mowing them down.
Yeah, I mean, they're like, quick table this army, you know, before they score 100 at top of 3, right? And then Drukhari's like, right, table them. Turn 2, you say. To shreds, you say. And
the go turn.
Yeah.
No, the other like noteworthy thing going into stuff like that is I built that list to deal with Necrons. So one of the specific keys that I had in was courts, various things that can gum down into scarabs and like comfortably kill them. And more importantly, the other lesson I'll teach for everyone playing Necrons is an army right now that's a whole bunch of really bad data sheets held together by very, very good secondaries. Like, seriously, if you're going to play practice games into Necrons, just test throwing yourself at them and see what happens. Because you'll be amazed that often that's the solution.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly what I do, mate. So yeah,
It's a good plan.
and so you said you got the win round 2, so that would have been nice to go from a draw to that and feeling good, knowing that the possibility of maybe catching one of the big guys, one of the big teams up the top there, and because that's a draw and a win round 1 and 2 VTC is not a small feat at all. So you're getting that. Who did you get round 3?
Well, that was a bit of foreshadowing that you might even know what was going to happen. Well, we in round 2, it was tight, went down to the wire, but we got the win in the end. And then we pair into Full House, which is Eric Lathuris, Hayden Walduck, and just TeamAustralia.co. And oh my God, that was terrifying.
I thought some of the guys weren't actually that good in that team. They just played quickly.
Well, they can only write team lists. So the English said Malik said so. So so look, was it all reds and a couple of oranges?
No, we had faith. We
Yeah. No, because you just said you matched up horribly earlier. So I was like, because I know that some of those lists are hard work, right? So and you're trying to. This is a really important thing to try and express to people who don't know about team tournaments. Is you really got to try and focus as much as you can on the list and your list, and stop thinking about the pilot to a certain extent, right? Obviously, you can't ignore that when you're looking at the bigger picture, but when you're talking about a spreadsheet pairings wise, you're looking at numbers, aren't you? So, didn't pair so well. How did the pairings process go when you sat down across the table there? Like, how did you feel?
I will note something quickly before we go into the pairings process. When Sam and I were in the car, I distinctly said, we need to pair this match as if it's not Eric Lathuris playing GSC. Like, because otherwise the sheet's irrelevant. Like, if the Excel spreadsheet's 25 reds, it's useless. So pair it as if, just don't pretend it's someone else. Pretend. We'll be fine. Like,
don't risk
you have to.
Yeah.
You have to, because otherwise, like you said, there's literally no point in doing that spreadsheet because you've bottled it already, right? Like, regardless if you look at the actual facts of it, you've given yourself no confidence for the matchup by just going, oh, it's Eric. It doesn't matter what we do, like you've lost it mentally already. So got to go in with a crack. How did you pair up, Jack?
We paired up okay. I think we got Knights into Sisters, which was a bit interesting. Sam went into Eric, so Sam swung at the King. I ended up playing Dean in his Chaos, and then Aaron played Tau. So, in other words, we got a lot of bad matchups. We were on the ropes, and we were kind of going, we'll need a few miracles here. Cody pulled out against Martino Sisters, which was pretty impressive.
Awesome.
I believe Rowan got up as well in that round.
Yeah, so Rowan played Gareth when he's Blood Angels, and he got up. It was a tight game, like a narrow win. I think it was a 12-8 or 13-7. I think he got a narrow win.
Yep.
And then,
that's where we'll end the conversation about that round, because the rest went happily ever after. I swear.
And the rest is happily ever after. Never, don't worry else.
All right, so then you go out. Do you go out for dinner? Did you take these guys out to dinner afterwards at least? Because that was your end of day one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys actually want to keep going, or want to keep going?
No, we're doing it. So there's a lot of people would love to know about how it was from Sam's point of view, but I'd love to know what it was like to play Bile with some, as well. So as a Drukhari player, 'cause we've heard about Sam playing Bile. I'd love to hear about.
It wasn't Bile, it was Night Lords, I believe.
Oh, was it Night Lords? Was it? Okay, my apologies. Yeah.
Did you take the Drukhari leadership?
You know what? I did know that.
Honor the Night Lords.
No, I did not. I proudly sat in my corner and cried myself to sleep.
Oh, okay.
Not quite. Like it. The Chaos matchup was really good, actually. Like to touch on it loosely. I was pretty scared by it because everything fights first, and that is anathema to Drukhari and how they like to fight. And Night Lords actually have a way to turn one charge with the Terminators that doesn't involve the relic. So that was one where I felt my inexperience with the list came up. And yeah, but it was still a really interesting game. I think it was a 13-7. And again, it was bloody. Like, it was basically once turn 3 kicked off, it was like, right, let's all meet in the midboard like this is primary school Warhammer and just kill each other.
Yeah. To be expected, right? So
yeah, and like so I got also I think those are the bottom pairings, and look, someone had to jump on the GSC grenade, and like none of us had played against the GSC list. We'd heard rumors about it, but never played against it, and well, lo and behold, it was going to be me because of the pairings, I was the one who's had the best chance of getting some points out of it, and so I paid into Eric's GSC list, and it was my first time playing Eric. I've loved like his content and like how he explains things, and look up to him. So it was good to play against him. He was an absolute legend, like just so great. It was like a really, really good game, and look, I got a point out of it. Okay, we'll leave it at that. He played 140 neophytes and 30 jackals, and his movement positioning and like being able to foresee how the game was going to play out was impeccable. It was just amazing to watch, and just how he knew how to play the matchup and game. And look, we just talked a lot of smack through it, and he said like afterwards, I asked if I had made mistakes or what I could have improved on. He's like, mate, you did as good as you could. Look, this is a terrible matchup for Sisters on this. How things worked out in terms of the train and mission, like because we were playing player place throughout it, and so Eric explained how literally his neophytes, no matter what I could do, he could deploy him, and so I was like, well, I did what I could. So yeah,
that's fantastic. So with Towse in the corner, that's hilarious. Okay, well that's fantastic. So look, there's nothing to be ashamed of losing to that caliber team. So well done, boys. So you've got 1-1-1 again. So something about Sam Lemon loves a Saturday 1-1-1. So we moved into round 4. Who did you get round 4?
Yeah, so we got so there's a shout out to these guys, a Risky Rollers. So they're like a battle report content creation place out of Victoria. So them and their team. So we had good friends of Jack. So Dalton, Lockie Betts, who was a VTC member, and Dalton, who was a VTC, also Victoria coach, apologies, and a couple of their guys. So, and yeah, they had a interesting lineup. So they had Death Guard, Yanari, then there was Nids with the Behemoth Monster Mash build. I think then it was Imperial Knights with Hawkshroud, which is like the 6+D6 heroic intervention. And I can't remember the last matchup, if you remember, Jack, off the top of your head.
Oh,
Or something different though. It was an interesting lineup of things. So Blood Angels was the last one. So yeah, but yeah, so went into it. So obviously you had the night before. We sort of knew who we were going to play against. Did some mock pairings, and we're like, okay, we know what we're going to do. Because for some reason we're like, they're not going to lead with Death Guard. They're not going to lead it with as a defender. Because like we thought they would like use it to pinch like one of the matchups early on, because the Death Guard mashed up pretty well into some other things. So like, right, we'll lead with Nids, and if they can take away the Death Guard because it matched up pretty poorly for the rest of our list, and then it frees up the pairings for all of us. And well, of course, once you do all these mock pairings, what do? They leave a Death Guard as a defender. It's like, God damn it! So look, it is what it is. And I jumped on that grenade because it opened up the pairings for everyone, and did what we could to make out of it.
We actually realized that Death Guard was a very distinct team weakness. Like Rowan's Nid struggle into it because they're just a bit more resilient. Drukhari, it's just like, I can't kill you. Sam, again, has a really rough time into it because Repentia don't do anything, especially with Foul Blight. And the Knights, it's just very swingy because there's a Mortarion. So we're sitting there the night before going, wow, remember when we did this big thing about what are our 2 attackers? Death Guard just flew under the radar. But yeah, like the pairings that round worked in their favor. Like it was one of those weird rounds where we kind of stepped to our tables going, they've got us here. We actually have to start pulling some rabbits out of hats in terms of play up. But it resulted in a draw, I believe. So
yeah, it was a tight draw. So I got a 8-12 into Death Guard. So despite I went first, which was massive in that matchup. So it was mission 32, so the quarters deployment again, and got an 8-12 out of it. So, and I'll mention, so the Crescent's Bar game, I also got an 8-12. So I lost, but got 8 points out of it, which is great, and did what I needed to. So try to mitigate it as much as possible. And yeah, I think all of us did relatively well. We did our best. Cody hunted some other Imperial Knights, and then Rowan got a good win on the narrow win on the Nids on the Behemoth Monster Mash list, and yeah, Jack, you went into some Yunari and killed some more elves. Just
Yeah, it was very much it was again a slaughter as any good elf on elf matchup would be, but it was a good 18-2 for Drukhari into Yunari. It was a bit of a weird hybrid list, but again, the joy of playing Eldar is I understand it, and it was nice to play against Dalton because I don't know many of the guys down in Vic, but I've been on his YouTube channel before and we're having a couple of chats. So that was a really fun game for me, irrespective of the fact that I had a job to do and it was kill a lot of elves. And then poor old Aaron, in true Aaron bus experience, ended up into Blood Angels, which, as we all know, Chaos Knights counter every single time, especially when Blood Angels go first. It's such a good matchup for Chaos Knights.
Dude,
That was
fine. Don't worry about it.
Just have 13 War Dogs.
Yeah. Easy. And the screen of flamers, so you can overwatch away the Death Company when they charge you. Easy.
Yeah. So that was a 20-0 to them, and again, it ended up in that very. It's always interesting in teams where 4 of the teams are finished and both teams almost huddle over to double check. Do we have enough points to make anything happen? So yeah, we're comfortable with a draw there, 1, 2, and 1, or however we pronounce it.
Okay, so you're probably thirsty for another win here. How did you go round 5?
yeah, so round 5 we played into Big Dice Energy, so another Victorian local team. So we had one of the guys from Legends and Lords, another YouTube channel to do battle reports as well. And we paired pretty good into these guys. So over lunch we sort of weren't sure who we were going to pair against because the way it fell out in terms of seeding, literally the team we just played, Risky Rollers, we were allegedly supposed to Swiss pair back into them again for round 5, but it didn't work out that way. So we paired into Big Dice Energy, and yeah, it was a good round. So we felt pretty good about it overall, and I went into some elves, so some Craftworld Elder, Ulfway stuff, and felt pretty good. So funnily enough, for the first time this weekend, I had a pretty positive matchup, I felt, for the most part, and got a good win there. And then, yeah, I think the rest of the team also got good wins. So Cody went into some Death Guard and went just burr to Morty and killed a bunch of other Death Guard stuff. What we wanted to do the previous round, but look, it didn't happen. And then Jack got to play some more bugs, and yeah.
I am so sick of Tyranids at this point.
You don't mean that, Jack, surely.
Oh, you know what's funny? You'd know this pretty well, Benny. I lost to Tyranids by a point.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I do remember that.
No,
I'm sorry, mate.
In this round.
Oh, you did it as well. Mate.
It was the exact same game. But thankfully in teams, it's so nice to go into an army that I know is bad and go, this is a much easier game because I don't have to play for the win. I'm here to actually play shortstop and go, I need just a 10-10.
Yeah, because you're taking more of a holistic approach to the match, right? Because you're thinking about all right, so I know I'm not going to win, but there is ways that I can stop him from getting such a big differential here, which can help the team. So it kind of it's almost the same concept of when you go, I just want to keep my points up in a singles event, so I know I'm going to lose this, but I'll keep my points up, to keep the ball rolling. But it's almost like a different perspective on it, which is actually really refreshing in teams. That one of the reasons teams is fun, right? Because it takes the doom and gloom away, because you've got 4 other people, or depending on what size your team is, batting, doing the same thing over there, and you're like, right, I need to do my best so these boys can do their job, and it's such a great feeling, right? So, but yeah, I mean, Tyranids 1 point again, mate. Oh,
and it depends as well. Where with the team stuff, right? If you you don't need to, if there's an interesting, when I've had Chaos Knights into a Terminator brick before with Abaddon, and when you're facing that, right, in teams, I would be okay, well, I'm just gonna sort of skirt around, try and play threat ranges, and keep scoring some points while trying not to get clobbered by that thing, and hope that the Dark Apostle fails the prayer sometime. And then it's all right, cool, that's go time. Because suddenly they're vulnerable. Oh, bend down. Whereas sometimes you kept it might be that no, we're looking dicey, go for the all or nothing play, or if you're game's a bit slower and something's going off, then yeah, yes, a coach or captain could give the call to go for the risky play and see if it sticks. Whereas singles, you're just like, I kind of just need to go and hope it works out, and it might suck and get blown out. It's great to have a different way of approaching the game.
It was one of the. It was actually my favorite game of the weekend, the Tyranids game. Again, I knew the bloke I was playing against from the one tournament in Victoria I've ever played. So it was nice to see him again. And I looked at Rowan and I'm like, I'm gonna try and do you proud because I played so many games into Nids. And again, it was just one of those games where on turn 3, Onslaught failed on the Hive Tyrant, and it was on. Like that. That was it. Yep.
Yeah, that's like one of those. Your eyes glow red and light up. I'm like,
yeah, Drazar just infinite appears and full sense.
When you said that to me, my bum cheeks clenched, and I was like, you know what? That's why I just can't play that model. Just that right there. Like anyway, well done, boys.
To like club or something and it lives on one wound. It's like no overrun, you say.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And you need to. Oh, I don't have a CP, so now if I want to use him, you're just going to die. Anyway, that's not neither here nor there. We're not even talking about VTC anymore. We're talking about Florence. So well done, lads. That sat you at 5th overall out of 18 teams in a highly competitive 5-man teams event in Australia, in the eastern side of Australia. That's a huge achievement. How did you guys feel when you kind of like you saw the final scores go and you knew you were 5th? How did you feel?
Pretty good. Yeah, I think it was a good achievement. Like, well, I mean, we go there like we don't care. I mean, personally, I don't mind too much where we rank as long as we all have fun and enjoy the experience and take something away from it. That's what matters. Like, I don't care about the fake internet ITC points. Like, whatever I get is great. But it was a good experience overall, and I think we all had a great time. We all had good opponents, and so it was a good time for everyone. And I think we should shout out. So Aaron Warren finally round 5 got a positive matchup, and he got a win. He got the win. So good for him, man.
Good on you, Aaron.
So yeah, it was good to finally have a bit of a send off with that, and yeah, I think it was good. And the drive home was great, just to discuss lists and sort of how to improve for next time and get ready.
I'll provide second fun road trip story because it does get pretty good and it is relevant to the first one. When we were driving back, Sam and I were on the same road we found the dirt road on, and we were actually sitting there going, "Are we going to do it again? Like, have we accidentally stumbled across the same path?" And thankfully, no dirt roads coming back. So coming back was a very pleasant experience.
Indeed.
Nice.
So yeah, I think we learned a lot. So we know we took some interesting information, and like we now know how to lead up moving forward, and yeah, get ready for the next team's event when it happens.
That's so good.
Alrighty.
How did you feel being interviewed on your own podcast? Quickly, how did you feel about
that? Fine. It was good. It was a good experience.
It was great. It was really good to hear your stories as well, boys. It was. I found that amazing. Just because, like, I haven't asked you too much about it because I knew we were going to do this. So it's really good to hear about the actual integral parts of the match. So well played to you guys, to both of you guys, and obviously the rest of your team. I won't repeat the name, but well done.
Shall we do you want to do a quick rundown of like the final placings of that? Because there's a
why not? I've got them right here.
In there,
I've got them right here. Let's do it. We'll just do the top 5, right? Jack. We'll note the ones we've had. If we've had any of them on here, we'll talk about them. So the placings we had, the normal side Blokes Alliance. So that was Liam Hackett, and shout out to Will Milton. He was on the chat on the stream earlier. Who else do we have on that one? I need to actually probably get the pairings.
I had Brian Lakeland, so he's another Harlequin player from Queensland who's a really good player. Sure. And then I had there was an interesting Castellan robot list. Ben Warrior. So Ben Warrior was running like the 24 Castellan robots. So in the
saw that,
defense cohort. And there was another list. Apologies, I can't remember the last person. Apologies.
Is it the Tyranids one?
Maybe Interiors. Sorry,
did you cover Liam?
Yeah, we said Liam. So
cool.
Yeah. And then in second, we had Eric's team, the guys you played. What was the name of that team again?
Full house.
Full house. So it had like obviously most of Team Australia in it. Not most of it, but it had like 3 members of Team Australia, which
Literally,
I think 2 more than you need. That's what I'd say. But it's brilliant. So well done to those guys. Then we had Adam Napier and the New South Wales boys in third, which is really awesome. Voltron. And then we had in fourth, we had Krootcon Wargaming. So they've been on the show before. They were also on their podcast. I had Matt Morrisoli on there talking about team tournaments. Classic Morrisoli interview, mainly him just telling people that they're all bad at 40k, which is fantastic. It doesn't get old. I enjoy it. I enjoy it, and I think anyone who's into Australian banter knows what that's all about.
The captain of Krootcon also made it onto Art of War, which is pretty neat. Finn got interviewed by Nick about teams event stuff, so that was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. We had you guys in fifth, and then we had Stewie, the team that you played first with a good play. They were in sixth. Was he Comrades Prime, Stewie?
Yeah, it sounds maybe about right.
Yeah, I think so.
They were Comrades to Tokyo Drift.
Okay, so that's down there. So basically, you had you guys were the only one on 3 wins, so it's worth noting. So you had obviously place 1 had 5, Full House, which is Eric's team, had 4, and then Krootcon and Adam Napier. So third and fourth, we had 3.5 wins. You guys on 3, and the rest are just 2.5s underneath that. And there's a fair few of them. So well done, boys. It's not a small feat.
Where did Tilted and Salty come in? The other
Tilted and Salty came in. They didn't not that they came in 9th. So yeah. So really not that far down. Like the rest were literally like the 2. So Comrades is like the biggest gaming group, kind of competitive gaming group in Victoria, and they had like 3 teams here, I think, and they came 6th and 8th. Then you had the Weapons of Mass Distraction. Love that name. Just so you know, I'm bang into that. It's a bit more like kind of PG rated too. I'm into I think, which is great. And then Tilted and Salty in 9th. So well done, guys. So
definitely a selling point for teams is the banter you can have with team names.
Oh yeah, I think it's so much banter like internally within the team. It's got all the balance. It's like excess of everything: excess of 40k, excess of players, excess of complexity in matchups, and kind of granularity of detail. And then basically you end up with like just just in excess of everything, right? Like
Yeah.
And
brilliant.
nothing will beat at a team event staring up into a round of 5, singling out one person on the enemy team and being like, "You're mine." Like we will engineer the pairings to make it so that you come over here and have to play me.
I had that done with me the first round of VTC as well. Actually, the first round I got singled out, and then it didn't happen. So I was like, damn.
Or bets or banter between others, or if someone like upsets the pairing master of your team, being like, "All right, well you're getting bust next round."
Exactly.
All right, lads. Well, let's move on to some questions for the audience. We are running nearly an hour and 40 now, so we should probably run out. We don't have too many, but why don't you kick us off and you can read the first one.
Back on hosting duties.
You're back on, mate.
I think
you've had your hour off.
Yeah, taken off. I think it would be wrong to say, Jack, you had a question for us. So the question reads, "What balance changes are you hoping for in the new balance style slate?" So, Kelsey, why don't you lead off? I think Benny Way is about to go on a bit of a tangent.
What changes are we hoping for balanced data slate?
I know what he's going to say. Go.
What am I going to say? No. Ben, what am I going to say? I
thought you were going to talk about Tyranid Warriors getting nerfed, please. Because he was having a whinge about it.
Yeah, no. So realistically, I do expect something to happen to. So what? Bile probably will have the expected fight on death thing happen. I hope that they do something to touch the transhuman part of Levy, because that probably needs something to massage Terrans to being having a semblance of internal balance between subfactions. Necrons try give them a tap to push them back down a little bit without neutering the faction. Because it's neat them the starter box faction having some play, but just tone down something scoring or synergy wise. Try pull up some of the struggling factions, maybe give the Golden Lads back some of their obsec or something. I don't know. I hope that I really, if I had to hope for something quickly, is that they managed to have the balanced data slate go out without too many just stacking band-aid fixes. Like Armor of Contempt to me is a bit I'm not a massive fan of how that's just sort of tacked on to things in the game of stacking, but it's hard to keep things going. All right, that's my rambling attempt. Sam, what do you want? What do you want? From
That
the
was
data slate?
incredibly controlled. Amazing. I am so impressed. Like, you've matured in this last hour and 40 minutes, and I just can we move on? I can't believe it. This is brilliant. We need to tell Alex. We need to message Alex in a minute and tell him that just happened. He would not. He would never believe it.
I'm really glad that I stopped any level of tangent. That means good job. You didn't. We're gonna go on a tangent to congratulate you for not tangenting.
Anyways, for me, balanced data slate changes. I think I think we're in a pretty good state in the meta right now. I would like to see how Votans pan out with the recent points adjustments and changes. So see how they go. Maybe a little bit, but we'll see what happens. I think, look, as you said, Nids can be nerfed a bit, Necrons can be nerfed a bit. Maybe Tile Sunshock Bombers go up a little bit, but I don't know. It's sort of they're pretty good. So I think I don't know. It's sort of there, and I think Adnek is sort of a bit behind the 8-ball, and some other things like Will Milton's pointing out, Imperial Fists need probably a bit of a buff. And look, if we can all stay in that 45 to 55% win rate, that'd be fantastic. So I think just some small tweaks and changes. Then I think it would be smooth sailing.
Yeah, Ben, you've probably got some thoughts to add in, because I have one more we follow up bit on this.
Yeah, I've got a couple. I think that Jack's already had his input previous to the podcast. He's just moving it forward. He was just paying it forward to this question for Drazar. I said so. Data slate changes. They tend not to like too much of a points update, do they? In a data slate. So they'll only address things which are really, really toxic in terms of points, I think, and that's probably more likely going to be a Sunshark Bomber. I think are the only things in points in my head. They could get obnoxious. The only other thing that I think they might touch is they'll make, because I think that actually when you look at I'm going to start again. So Tyranid Warriors are the main perpetrators of the Leviathan trait being bad. Now, I hope GW can look at it realistically and with just some sort of rationality and see that really the only thing in Tyranids that really needs to actually be nerfed is warriors need to pay 5 to 10 points for their bone swords, right? And that actually fixes Leviathan trait, in my opinion, because you ask them to pay an extra 90 points for a squad of warriors, right, which they're going to be kitted out to the nines. That's going to be a 370 points, approximately 380 points. You only ever get 2 of them. You're asking someone to put 800 points of warriors in their list. You are going to see less of them. I actually think that makes them. The only other thing that I think in turn is it probably could get tapped, and I wouldn't be surprised if it does. And it probably needs is the Hive Tyrant / Reaper of Obliterax. I don't think the actual Hive Tyrant itself needs to be nerfed now. I think we need a proper ruling on the Feel No Pains to bring it all in line, which I think would make the Reaper a bit more palatable. I think there's something there. I think they're a danger if they nuke Leviathan from the earth, that Tyranids actually do drop down legitimately a tier. I think that they don't have any good saves after that, so you are left with Hive Nexus carrying anything smaller than a monster as it is. But anyway, I digress on Tyranids. I hope they don't go too rough on them. I'd like to continue playing them for a while if I could. I think Necrons. I love seeing them at the top. They're not my kind of faction aesthetically or anything like that, but it's nice to see something different. I think the reason the meta is great at the moment is there's so many different factions, and you can't tech for them all. I think they need to make one of their 3 secondaries, like Code of Combat would be a good one. They need to bring one of them down so it's either harder to get or it caps it at 12, and then I think we have not an overpowered S tier faction. I think we just have an X tier faction, which I think's fine.
The problem with that, Ben, is they've got 4 secondaries, dude. a lot of the times people are just not taking Code of Combat and still scoring
Yeah.
real high.
So
But yeah,
I think they need to make it so when they take their three faction secondaries, one of them, you know, there's not like you're not just racking
for
up
sure.
30 points on them. I think they need to make it so it's 20 caps at like 25 or something like that. And I think
the other potential solution for Code of Combat is similar to what Druk have with Take Them Alive, which is their kill things in combat one. It's capped to 5 per battle round. One of the reasons everyone loves Code so much is because you can actually score 12 points with one character in one turn.
Yeah, and the other one is Purge the Vermin, which I think would be nice to take that. Yeah, which would be
like grind
would
them
be
down
nice.
or the one that's in the grind them down category that is like grind them down no prisoners, but it's like effectively a stranglehold.
Yeah.
In not the battlefield. That's like another common gripe people have. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean you could change them from instead of capping it at 12, you could almost put like the 2 best ones in the same category. And then it causes a problem, right? Maybe we put you know, something like that would be a good thing to do.
Their action one potentially go down a point as well, or something like that. If it's 3 points for that, there's a bunch of things they can do. Hopefully, they just do like
shave a little
light
bit.
cap.
Yeah, they just need. I want them to stay S tier. I think they shouldn't be able to just get hundreds at will. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that. I think the timer. I like the secondary timer. I think it creates a great problem, and I like the way that, you know, Necrons kind of don't have they do have the data sheets to posture up, but against some armies they don't. And I like that timer, but I think that if we could just make it so it was 4 turns and they got 70 rather than 3 turns they got 70, would make a world of difference. And I think, like Sam said, AdMech need to get sorted out. I think just release the guard book. Don't do much more to guard. Just release the guard book would just be fine. I think Votan, I think, is fine. Look, I will worry about Votan when I start seeing it locally. I don't have any interstate events or anything crazy basically for the rest until Uprising now in January, which is LVO time for American listeners. So I'll tackle that bridge when it comes to it. I'm kind of, it's a shame they did what they did, but I think it's probably better for the health meta, but I'll worry about it when it comes, and then I'll whinge about it when it comes if I still think it's too strong. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I just think they need to do that. I think if they can just sort out malefic weapons in the balance update would be nice. If they can there's just some things they need to sort out and clarify, because it's just we're some things are beyond the joke now, the FAQs. So yeah, and that's it.
Is there anything we think needs to be buffed? Like, I know Jack thinks Draz is overcosted and just not worth it, so he needs to be dropped about 10 points. But yeah, like so there's the obvious, like the well touted AdMech are suffering, and Guard are just like, you know, their books at primary school now, so, you know, sort that out. But yeah, like, what is there anything else we reckon is grossly outlying? Like vanilla Codex Space Marines are like having a whole time of it. Anything else we're missing that like needs to be buffed?
Yeah, I think we touched on it, like CSM and mech. And I think Guard just need their book per se. Orcs maybe need a little bit of a buff. Maybe they can revert some of the nerfs that happen with indirect to this points, or maybe don't make it free. The crazy freebooter stuff, but maybe you can give a bit of a buff and love to them.
Yeah, some love to Orcs would be a good shout. Maybe even if Orcs, they just like made a whole bunch of their CP cheaper somehow, right? Like their stratagems. Because like the classic joke for Orcs was like, you started on like 2 CP in Nephilim, in pre-Nephilim, right? Because you just like the strats are not good. You just take detachments and get out war bosses. Something like that could be neat for Orcs to give them some love. Yeah.
Have to wait and see. But Jack, what do you think? What do you think should change?
I'm going to put a full disclaimer on this of I only play elves. I'd really want GW to look back at Armor of Content and maybe readjust it slightly. So one of the things I don't mind it as a holistic thing. It gets a little oppressive when you start dealing with like T-Suns in particular. I think their particular blend of it, where they get the -1/+1 stack, gets a little oppressive. Also, just even on Terminator units, I'd love to experiment around with maybe looking at it as something like out of cover, or some way to basically never let them get to a 0-up save, where it really starts to get like eye rolling. Like I fire -4, you have a 4-up save.
I'd like them to just take one or the other.
Yeah,
they either take cover or they take that.
Like Like the Lucius treatment, right? Of you can't
Yeah.
stack it with the light cover. Yeah, that's a pretty good shout. Yeah. Or maybe like it doesn't work on things with a 2-up armor save, like because they put effort into being like it doesn't go on Storm Shield models or a Dread Knight and like the random combination of stuff. But yeah, that's a pretty good shout.
As a meme, I'd love to see it given to Sisters of Silence only in the Custodes books, so that we can end the
And the
Custodes
Rhino.
run of AOC. Yeah, and the Rhino.
Yeah, no, I'm at least that, because yeah, that's literally like the worst Rhino in the game is that Rhino in the Sisters of Silence one, because it is the only one without Armor of Contempt, and it doesn't have like it's just it's so bad. I freaked out like quite a while back when I saw the degradation profile of a Rhino when I was running carnivores that go 14, 12, 10 on their movement bracket as they go from 14 to 6 to 3 wounds. And then I'm like, a Rhino goes 12, 6, 3. It's just like, oh man, this has one job and it's moving. It cannot do it well. Unlucky.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see, right? We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, hopefully it comes out very soon. But thanks, everyone. This has been episode 15 of 40K Frontiers. Thank you, Jack, for appearing as guest host. Any final plugs before we head off?
No, obviously, mostly at this point, I'm attached to Ben and his Newcastle division. So, yeah, whatever he's going to plug, I'll nod and support.
Jack, you got one closing statement, surely, mate.
Actually, one last thing for the balance. Give Talos core back, please. Please. Make them 20
I actually think it'd be really good. It would actually mix up that A tier bracket like really hard, because Talos are another problem, which is just another stat check which no one needs.
Please, GW.
Oh man.
Not that I want to see them back at all. Let's just so we're clear.
Yeah.
It'd be great for the game.
Yeah, that's my final plug. I'm done. Just make Drukhari S tier again.
There we go. That's all we need. Fix City, baby.